David Martone, Executive Chef at Classic Thyme Cooking School here in Westfield, New Jersey, and welcome to Cooking Time. This is part two, actually, of a two-part series we filmed with getting rid of leftovers. Not really getting rid of them, reinventing leftovers. And I'll tell you what, this is, the stuff I have left over here is all like real good home cooking stuff. And I remember friends and friends of friends, we'd go to their houses to eat. It was all this great, heartwarming family food. So I've got some leftover tomato gravy, and it's called gravy. Tomato sauce is something you make in 20 minutes. This is tomato gravy. It's cooked with meatballs and sausage and braciole, and so we have a little container of tomato gravy left. I have some wonderful ricotta cheese. Actually, I have two little bowls of it. And this is a real treat. We have some leftover gavadil homemade macaroni that we made, and you know, good to the last drop. So we're gonna figure out a way to put together a whole bunch of these items. I've got some peppers now. We've roasted some peppers. We're gonna show you how to roast another one. How could you make tomato gravy and not have meatballs? You always make 100 meatballs. We've got some meatballs left. I've got some leftover risotto. People think risotto, what do you do with it? God, you know, you can't reheat it well. Well, I'm going to show you a great trick for it, and I hope we have enough time to get to it. And also, we have some broccoli rabe that's sauteed in oil and garlic. We're going to show you a real nice peasant dish called panna cotta to doctor this up and make another nice meal out of it. This is the kind of food that I remember eating at home all the time. And actually, I just got a call from a good friend of mine, Rick. His dad had some emergency surgery, and his dad's a great guy. And so this is the kind of stuff that Rick's dad used to make, and my dad used to make, my mom, Rick's mom. So thinking of Rick's dad while I'm doing this. So Joe, we're thinking about you as we're cooking. And Ricky and I, his son, get together a lot and cook. We kind of have this loosely formed Italian club. And we meet every, I don't know, 6-8 weeks with a bunch of guys from where we grew up in Jersey City, and we cook together. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these leftover meatballs, and I'm going to just kind of chop them up with a fork in this bowl in the little bit of gravy that they're in. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to make a lasagna roll. I had some lasagna noodles that are the actually fresh, and you don't really have to boil them. You can just fill them in and bake them. I had them in the freezer, so I pulled those out when I you know, had a little bit left and said, you know what, I'll use this up someday, and today is the day. So today we're going to make these wonderful little lasagna rolls, I'll call them. So chopping up the meatball to where they're somewhat smaller pieces. You know, meatballs can be anything from the size of small handballs all the way up to softballs, depending on which family is making them. I had a great, not a great aunt actually, my uncle's mother-in-law, who lived till she was like 97, used to take the bus from Los Angeles to Las Vegas and gamble. She made meatballs that each one had a hard-boiled egg in the center. Huge meatballs, they were like this big. I called them depth charges. So I'm going to put some ricotta cheese in this mixture with the meatballs, and some grated Pecorino Romano cheese. Growing up in Jersey City, we always used locatelli because the locatelli plant was in Jersey City. As a kid, and you've probably heard me say this before, I always thought locatelli was the type of cheese. My mother would tell me, you know, run down to the store and get me a pound of locatelli. I didn't know till later on that it's actually Pecorino Romano cheese, which pecorino means sheep, so it's a sheep's milk cheese, nice and sharp, much more sharp than Parmesan cheese, which is made from cow's milk. So once I have this mixture all together, now this is more of the components of a lasagna. I'm going to take my lasagna noodles, and let's see, we're going to put them in this. We're going to put some of this right down the center here. I remember one time my friend Rick and I, we owned a condominium together, and we were going to be big real estate investors, and we bought this condominium. We actually bought a couple of them, and one of them had no windows. You know, Two kids from Jersey City. We buy a condominium with no windows. So it was a brick building. See, I'm just rolling this up. I'm going to put a little tomato gravy in our... Leah, could you actually get me a larger, the 9 by 13? This is a little bit small, and you always have to have extra because you never know. The phone might ring, somebody might come over, and we have to feed a bunch more people. So anyway, brick building, and we're figuring out what are we going to do with this condominium. We were having trouble renting it, and we really need a window. So there was a window in the building years ago, and we could see the outline on the outside. So we, being the smart guys that we were, we measured the outside of the building, compared it to measurements on the inside, figured where and abouts the window would be, and we called in Rick's dad, Joe, and my dad, Walter, who were going to be the project supervisors. And here Rick and I were going to chop through the side of this brick building and try and put a window in. So Mr. DiDonato came over along with my dad, and we bought the window. We bought all the material we needed, and before you know, we're standing around, and Rick's dad said, don't be shy, just start banging a hole in the sheetrock. You think you know where it is. It's the best way to learn. So we scoped it all out, and before you know it, we had a hole cut in the sheetrock, and sure enough, we could see where that old window was. See, I'm just laying these in this wonderful tomato gravy. And we hammered through that brick, and we set that new window in and secured it, and finished the trim work, and before you know it, we had a window in our condominium, and it solved all our problems. But this is the kind of involvement that our parents had. They were always there every step of the way with us, no matter what we were doing, whether we were correcting mistakes we made or starting new ventures. And I'll never forget that Rick and I were looking at each other like, oh boy, we're really in deep here. And his dad and my dad gave us the support and gave us the supervision that we needed and guidance to help us through it. And we were able to put a window in. I still pass by and see that window today. Anyway, just some silly stories that you remember from growing up, but who would think to attempt such a thing today? One of our Italian club meetings, we were making a bunch of braciole, and we bought some pork skin because Rick said, oh, my dad makes the absolute best braciole called, I think he called it gordina. And they were just pieces of pork skin that you would poach, and then we layered with some filling and cooked them very, very slow in a tomato gravy, and it was just absolutely wonderful. So here's our last one. Just even this guy out. Roll that one up as well. These actually look like more like cannelloni, which are filled with meat. A little tomato gravy over the top. Then we'll put some more cheese, some shredded cheese. See, now you kind of get the idea that it's looking more like a lasagna or a manigot, which has all ricotta in it, or cannelloni, which has meat, but the meat is more ground. This is more hunks of meat, so I call these my lasagna rolls. Because after all, we just kind of made it up today. We'll pop that one in the oven.